The United States has 50 states, and every single one of them has something living in it that can ruin your entire week, or worse. Not in some distant jungle, not on another continent. Right now, within driving distance of wherever you're sitting, there is an animal that evolution spent millions of years perfecting into something you genuinely do not want to meet. Lizard in Arizona that locks its jaws onto your arm and chews venom into the wound for 15 straight minutes. A bear in Alaska that doesn't see you as a threat, it sees you as a meal. A shark in Florida that swims hundreds of miles up freshwater rivers into places where nobody expects anything with 300 teeth. These are not exotic creatures from the other side of the world. They share a country with 330 million people, and some of them share a backyard. Before we get into this, drop a comment. What time is it where you are and which state are you watching from? Polar bear 800 kilograms, 40 kilometers per hour on snow, and a very specific behavior that separates it from nearly every other large animal on the continent. It actively hunts people, not because you startled it, not because you got near its young, because it's hungry, and in the endless white void of the Arctic. Anything warm and moving is food. The polar bear, Ursus maritimus, is the largest land predator on Earth, and it calls one American state home, Alaska. Most large animals will go after a person only in self-defense. A moose kicks when it's cornered. A grizzly charges when it feels threatened. The polar bear operates on a completely different logic. In a landscape where temperatures can collapse past -50 and a single meal might be the difference between making it through the week or not, this animal doesn't have the luxury of being picky. If it's warm and it moves slower than 40 kilometers per hour, it qualifies as dinner. In 2023, in the remote Alaskan village of Wales, a community of fewer than 150 people, a polar bear emerged from a blinding snowstorm in the middle of town. It went after a young mother and her small child before anyone could react. Residents managed to bring the bear down with firearms, but it was too late. Neither the mother nor her child made it out. And that's the thing about this animal. You probably won't see it coming. The undersides of a polar bear's paws are covered in thick, dense fur. Not just for insulation against the ice, but for something far more unsettling: silence. An animal that weighs as much as a compact car moves across frozen ground without making a sound. It materializes out of whiteness. No footsteps, no warning, nothing. Those same paws measure about 30 centimeters across, roughly the size of a large dinner plate. They work as snowshoes in deep powder and as blunt force instruments when the bear strikes. A single swipe carries enough energy to dent the side panel of a car. That's not a metaphor, that's measured data. Now here's something most people get completely wrong. Polar bears are not white. Their fur is made of hollow, transparent tubes that scatter and reflect light, creating the illusion of whiteness. Underneath all of it, their skin is pitch black, an adaptation designed to absorb every possible trace of solar heat in a place where the sun barely rises for months at a time. But the thing that really makes this animal terrifying on a conceptual level is its nose. A polar bear can detect a seal beneath a full meter of solid ice from over 30 kilometers away. That number has been measured in controlled studies, not estimated. Their olfactory system is arguably the most powerful of any land mammal ever documented. So picture the full package: an animal the weight of a small car, faster than any human sprinter, moving in complete silence, seeing in near darkness, smelling you from an entire town away, and regarding you purely as a source of calories. Most predators on this list will leave you alone if you leave them alone. This one simply never got that memo. Western diamondback rattlesnake. We just covered the largest land predator on the planet. Something that weighs 800 kilos and stalks its prey across Arctic ice in total silence. The next animal on this list weighs less than 7, and it created the single most feared sound in the history of the American frontier. There's a sound that the human brain seems almost hardwired to flag as danger. even if you've never heard it before in your life. A dry, rapid buzzing, like someone shaking a maraca filled with tiny bones right next to your ear. That's the western diamondback rattlesnake, Crotalus atrox, the most iconic venomous snake in the United States, and the animal that defined fear in Texas long before anything else tried. The rattle isn't just a warning. Neurological research suggests that the specific frequency of that sound activates the fear response in the human brain faster than almost any other natural stimulus. Your body reacts before your mind fully registers what it heard. Heart rate spikes, muscles lock, you freeze in place, and freezing near a coiled diamondback is precisely the wrong move. Because when this snake strikes, it doesn't give you time to reconsider. The attack speed has been clocked between 2.9 and 3.5 meters per second. The average human blink takes about 300 milliseconds. The snake's fangs reach skin in less than that, and the strike range covers up to 2/3 of the animal's full body length, which means the distance most people assume is safe usually isn't. Now here's what those fangs deliver. The venom is primarily hemotoxic and cytotoxic. In plain language, it breaks down the walls of your blood vessels from the inside and begins dissolving living tissue around the puncture. The area swells fast, shifting from red to deep purple to black as the cells collapse. People who've been bitten describe the sensation as having boiling acid pushed under the skin with a syringe. And a single dose carries enough venom to break down the flesh of a rabbit-sized animal within hours. The snake essentially begins digesting its prey before it even swallows. In 2015, a man in Texas named Austin Hatfield caught a western diamondback and decided to keep it in his bedroom. That decision alone is worth a pause. But then he tried to kiss the snake. It bit him directly in the face. Hatfield survived after multiple rounds of anti-venom and extensive reconstructive procedures to repair the tissue damage. The doctors rebuilt parts of his jaw and cheek, all because he wanted a selfie moment with a loaded biological weapon. Now, there's a myth that follows rattlesnakes everywhere, and it needs to be addressed. The idea that baby rattlesnakes are more dangerous than adults because they can't control how much venom they release. It's a widely repeated belief. It's also wrong. Adult diamondbacks carry venom glands roughly 10 times the volume of a juvenile's, and they deliver significantly greater quantities with every strike. A bite from a baby rattlesnake is a medical event. A bite from a full-grown adult is a race against the clock. But here's what caught my attention more than the venom. And it's something most people never hear about. This snake can see heat. Between each eye and nostril, the diamondback has a pair of pit organs, small cavities called loreal pits lined with membranes sensitive to infrared radiation. These aren't crude heat detectors. They generate a full three-dimensional thermal image in the snake's brain, layered right on top of its regular vision. In the kind of pitch-black desert night where you can't see your own feet. This snake builds a complete thermal map of every warm-blooded animal around it and strikes with pinpoint accuracy. A 7-kilo reptile, coiled in the dark Texas sand, watching the world in infrared, carrying enough venom to dissolve your hand from the inside out. The American West had a long list of things worth fearing. This is the one that made a sound first. Tarantula hawk wasp. The rattlesnake gives you a warning. That dry buzzing is terrifying, but at least it's honest. The animal is telling you to back off before things escalate. The next creature doesn't bother with warnings. It warns everything else just by existing. Bright orange wings, a metallic blue-black body. Nature's universal color code for one simple message: do not touch me. In the deserts of New Mexico, there's a wasp roughly the size of an adult's thumb with wings that look like they were forged in a furnace. It's called the tarantula hawk, Pepsis grossa, and its entire existence revolves around one task: finding giant tarantulas, shutting their bodies down, and using them as living incubators. But let's start with the sting, because that's what put this insect on the scientific map. An entomologist named Justin Schmidt dedicated a significant portion of his career to getting stung by insects. on purpose. He cataloged the pain of every sting he experienced and built what's now called the Schmidt Pain Index, a scale from 1 to 4. Most wasp stings land around a 2. A yellow jacket is about a 2. A honeybee, roughly a 2. A paper wasp might scratch a 2.5. The tarantula hawk scores a 4, the absolute maximum. The ceiling of the scale. Nothing goes higher because nothing measured ever hurt more. Schmidt wrote about the experience in his own notes. Immediate, excruciating, and absolutely debilitating. It shuts down your ability to do anything other than scream. Other researchers have compared the feeling to dropping a plugged-in hairdryer into a full bathtub while you're sitting in it. A raw, continuous electrical shock that radiates through the entire limb. The pain lasts somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes. During that window, the actual medical recommendation, and this is genuine, is to lie on the ground and ride it out. Because if you try to walk or run, you're more likely to fall and hurt yourself worse than the sting ever would. And here's where it gets strange. That sting, the one that maxes out the only scientific pain scale in existence, carries almost zero toxicity to mammals. It won't dissolve tissue. It won't trigger organ failure. It won't leave any lasting physical damage unless you happen to be severely allergic. The whole thing is a neurological event. It hijacks your pain receptors, pushes them to their absolute ceiling for a few minutes, and then vanishes. You're fine. Completely fine. Evolution built this insect a weapon that generates the worst pain a nervous system can produce, and does absolutely nothing else. That's either brilliant design or cosmic cruelty, probably both. But the sting is not the main story here, not even close. The real story is what the tarantula hawk does with spiders. When a female tarantula hawk is ready to reproduce, she goes looking for prey. She locates a tarantula burrow, and some of these spiders are larger than a grown man's open hand, and goes inside. The tarantula rears up, fangs bared, ready to fight. The wasp circles, dodges, repositions. This is a real battle. The spider isn't helpless. Tarantula fangs carry their own venom, and a solid bite from one can do real damage. But the wasp has one advantage the spider doesn't: surgical precision. When she finds an opening, and she always does, she drives her stinger directly into the tarantula's central nerve cluster. That stinger can reach 7 millimeters in length. Relative to the wasp's body, that's the equivalent of a human walking around with a dagger permanently fixed to their lower back. The effect is nearly instant. But the venom doesn't finish the spider. It paralyzes it. Every leg locks rigid. The tarantula's eyes still work. Its body is fully intact, fully alive. It simply cannot move a single muscle. The wasp then drags the paralyzed spider, often several times her own body weight, back to a prepared burrow. She lays a single egg on the tarantula's abdomen, and she seals the chamber shut from the outside. Days later, the larva hatches, and it starts feeding on the spider's body. Here's the detail that makes this genuinely unsettling. The larva avoids the vital organs first, instinctively consuming non-essential tissue to keep its host alive and fresh for as long as possible. This goes on for weeks. The tarantula is conscious for most of it, and the only animal on record that regularly goes after tarantula hawks without hesitation? The roadrunner, the actual bird from the cartoons. Except the real one isn't running from anything. It's smashing the wasp against rocks to snap the stinger off before swallowing the whole thing. The most painful sting on the planet. Zero lasting harm. A reproductive cycle that sounds like it was written for a horror screenplay. New Mexico keeps its nightmares small. American alligator. The tarantula hawk uses a living body as a nursery. It's disturbing at any scale. But the next animal on this list does something almost as ancient, almost as patient, except it weighs half a ton and has been perfecting its technique for longer than most species have existed on this planet, 200 million years. That's roughly how long this animal's design has been on Earth. For context, the dinosaurs showed up around 230 million years ago. The alligator was already here when the first tyrannosaurs took their first steps. It was in the water, waiting, doing exactly what it does now. It watched an asteroid reshape the planet 66 million years ago. It didn't flinch. It didn't need to change a single thing about itself. It was already perfect for what it does. The American alligator, Alligator mississippiensis, is the undisputed ruler of Louisiana's bayous. And the reason it's been around longer than almost anything else with a backbone is deceptively simple. It mastered the art of being invisible in dark water. A full-grown male can stretch past 4 meters and weigh over 450 kilograms. And in the murky, tea-colored water of a Louisiana swamp, it looks exactly like a floating log. Same color, same rough texture, same absolute stillness. The water barely ripples. A heron lands nearby. A raccoon drinks at the edge. Everything seems fine, and then the water explodes. That's the alligator's entire playbook. Patience, camouflage, and one of the most devastating jaws in the animal kingdom. The bite force has been measured at 2,125 pounds per square inch. To visualize that, imagine the full weight of a small car, focused entirely onto a single tooth. That's the pressure this animal generates when its jaws close. There is no prying them apart. There is no negotiation. And once those jaws lock on, it does something that no other large reptile does quite the same way. The death roll. The alligator seizes its target, drags it below the surface, and begins rotating its entire body along its own axis. Fast, violent, continuous. 4 meters of dense muscle spinning like a barrel in the water. The purpose isn't just to hold on, it's to tear apart whatever it's gripping. Limbs come loose. Bones give way. The prey is pulled underwater, loses all sense of direction, and within seconds, the contest is over. But the alligator doesn't just work horizontally, using nothing but its tail. A massive, muscular structure that makes up nearly half its total body length. It can launch itself vertically out of the water. Straight up. A 4-meter alligator can clear 2 meters of air from a dead stop in the water, jaws open, targeting anything above the waterline. If you're standing on a low dock thinking you're safe because you're a meter above the surface, reconsider, and it doesn't need to see you to find you. The surface of an alligator's snout is covered in thousands of tiny dome-shaped sensors called integumentary sense organs. They're so sensitive that they can detect the faintest ripple on the water. A single vibration from a small animal stepping at the edge of a pond, dozens of meters away, in complete darkness. This animal doesn't need eyes to locate you. It feels the water move. In June 2016, at a resort near Orlando, Florida, a luxury property with manicured grounds and artificial lagoons, a 2-year-old boy was wading in shallow water at the edge of a man-made lake. His parents were right there. An alligator surged from the water, grabbed the child, and pulled him under. The father jumped in immediately and fought the animal with his bare hands. It made no difference. The boy was recovered the following day. He didn't make it. That incident reshaped how the entire state of Florida manages wildlife near populated areas. But it also made something brutally clear about this animal. It does not distinguish between a deer drinking at the edge of a swamp and a child playing at a resort lagoon. If it's near the water's edge and it's the right size, it registers as food. Now, here's where the alligator's biology takes a genuinely strange turn. Those jaw muscles, the ones that produce over 2,000 psi of closing force, are part of one of the most lopsided mechanical designs in nature. The muscles that shut the mouth are enormous. Massive fiber bundles anchored deep in the skull, built for industrial-grade clamping. But the muscles that open the mouth, almost non-existent. A single adult human can hold an alligator's jaws shut using just their hands. A few wraps of strong duct tape, and the most powerful bite in the swamp is completely neutralized. 2,000 psi to close. Practically nothing to open. It's a vault door held shut by a paper hinge, just in reverse. And this animal's world is changing. In the Florida Everglades, alligators have been fighting a new kind of war against Burmese pythons. These massive invasive snakes, some stretching past 5 meters, have colonized the same waters the alligator has dominated for millennia. The two species clash regularly now, and the results can be hard to believe. There are documented cases of pythons that swallowed adult alligators whole, and at least one case where the alligator apparently kept fighting from inside the snake's body, rupturing it from within. Neither animal walked away from that one. Two ancient body plans, two completely different strategies, locked in combat in a Florida swamp. And that's not a nature special pitch. That's what's happening right now, today in the Everglades. But here's the fact I want to leave this one on, because it catches almost everyone off guard. The sex of every alligator ever born is not determined by genetics. It's determined by heat. If the temperature of the nest stays above 34 degrees Celsius during incubation, the eggs produce males. Below 30 degrees, females. A few degrees of warmth in the surrounding mud decide the future of the entire next generation. 200 million years of survival. Outlasted the dinosaurs, the ice ages, and now the pythons. And the whole thing still hinges on how warm the dirt is. Kodiak bear. The alligator survived everything this planet has thrown at it. Asteroid impacts, ice ages, invasive species. Its body plan is 200 million years old, and it still works perfectly. The next animal on this list didn't need that kind of time. It just needed a few thousand years of isolation, and an island with no competition. Take a grizzly bear. One of the most powerful land animals in North America. Now add 200 extra kilograms of mass. Stretch the claws past 11 centimeters. Widen the skull until it can deflect a glancing rifle round. And place it on a remote island where it has had 12,000 years of unlimited salmon and zero natural rivals. That's the Kodiak bear. Ursus arctos middendorfi. And it is, by virtually every physical measurement, the largest bear on Earth. The Kodiak archipelago sits off the southern coast of Alaska, a cluster of islands blanketed in dense temperate rainforest, surrounded by some of the richest salmon waters on the planet. On those islands, isolated from the mainland since the last ice age, a population of brown bears evolved without any of the pressures that normally keep large animals in check. No wolf packs competing for prey. No territorial disputes with other bear subspecies. No human encroachment until very recently. Just vast forests, endless protein, and the biological freedom to grow as large as the skeleton can support. The result is an animal that, standing upright on its hind legs, reaches 3 meters. That's the height of a regulation soccer goal. If you stood next to one, the top of your head would barely reach its chest. A large male weighs between 680 and 800 kilograms, roughly the combined mass of 10 adult men standing on the same scale. Its claws extend past 11 centimeters, longer than a standard steak knife. They're not built for finesse. They're built for anchoring into flesh and tearing through whatever resists. And the skull. The Kodiak's skull is so dense, so reinforced with layers of solid bone, that it has been documented deflecting bullets from common hunting calibers when struck at a shallow angle. Not absorbing the impact, not slowing the round, bouncing it off. A head engineered like a battering ram, with bone density that borders on biological armor. Field researchers who have worked around Kodiak bears describe a very specific experience. Before you see the animal, you feel the ground. A low, rhythmic vibration through the soil that strengthens with each step. Then the smell. A thick, overpowering wave of decomposing fish and wet fur that reaches you before the bear rounds the tree line. By the time you actually lay eyes on it, your body has already decided that something very large is very close. In 2012, a hunter named Roy Roth was tracking mountain goats across the steep terrain of Kodiak Island when he was ambushed by a massive male. The bear charged from a concealed position, hit him hard enough to throw him off a rocky ledge, and pursued him downhill to continue the attack. Roth survived, but only because the rest of his hunting party reached him in time and brought the animal down at close range. The bear that was recovered weighed well over 600 kilograms. But here's where the Kodiak bear starts to contradict everything you'd expect from an animal this size, despite being physically capable of dismantling virtually any living creature on the North American continent. Kodiak bears are, statistically, less aggressive toward humans than their smaller mainland cousins, the grizzlies. And the reason is almost ironic. They've never had to be. On the islands, food is abundant year-round. Salmon runs flood the rivers every season. There's no scarcity, no desperation, no need to fight over scraps or defend territory from competing predators. Every summer, when Pacific salmon begin their spawning runs up the rivers of the archipelago, something remarkable happens. Dozens of these massive bears gather along the same stretches of rapids, shoulder to shoulder, sometimes less than a body length apart, and fish together. It's one of the highest concentrations of apex predators in any single location on Earth. And despite the size, the power, and the close proximity, major conflicts between them are surprisingly rare. They've developed a social hierarchy built on posture, size, and mutual avoidance. The biggest males claim the best fishing spots. Everyone else keeps their distance and waits. Aggression, in most animals, is a response to pressure. Remove the pressure and you get something you don't expect, a 700-kilogram predator that mostly just doesn't bother. That said, when Kodiak males do fight, the results are difficult to overstate. During mating season, when two dominant males contest the same stretch of river or the same female, the encounters are seismic. These are animals the size of compact cars slamming into each other at full charge. The sound of their skulls colliding has been described by researchers as audible from hundreds of meters away, echoing through the forest. Bones fracture. Skin tears open. Fights can last for several minutes, and the loser often walks away with permanent consequences. A shattered canine, a cracked jaw, deep wounds that take months to close. But those fights are between bears. Toward humans, the Kodiak is strangely measured. Not docile. Never mistake anything about this animal for docile, but measured. It's the difference between an animal that charges because it's starving and cornered, and one that only charges because you were genuinely, catastrophically in the wrong place at the wrong time. And one last thing, before hibernation each autumn, a Kodiak bear selects a den site on a mountain slope and digs it at a very precise angle, tuned, through instinct refined over thousands of generations, so that wind-driven snow accumulates over the entrance and seals it shut naturally. The bear doesn't pack the snow. It doesn't maintain the doorway. It digs, it walks in, it falls asleep, and the weather does the rest, building a perfectly insulated, naturally sealed shelter while blizzards tear across the surface above. 700-kilogram predator with a skull that deflects bullets and claws longer than steak knives, spending its last waking afternoon of autumn picking the perfect angle for a snow door. That's the Kodiak. Black widow spider. The Kodiak bear weighs 700 kilograms and needs an entire island to itself. The next animal on this list weighs less than a gram. It needs a crack behind your toolbox. And drop for drop, its venom is 15 times more concentrated than a rattlesnake's. There's a shape that most Americans learn to recognize before they even understand why it matters. A small, jet-black spider with a body like a polished bead and a single marking on the underside of its abdomen. A bright red hourglass. That's the black widow, Latrodectus mactans. And she might be the most efficient venomous animal on this entire list. Not the biggest. Not the most aggressive, the most efficient. Because what this spider can accomplish with less than a milligram of venom is genuinely hard to believe. The active compound is called alpha-latrotoxin. It's a neurotoxin, but it doesn't work the way most venoms do. It doesn't dissolve tissue like the rattlesnakes. It doesn't attack blood cells. Instead, it forces the massive, uncontrolled release of neurotransmitters, primarily acetylcholine, across every nerve junction it reaches. Your nervous system essentially starts firing everything at once, with no off switch. The medical term for what happens next is latrodectism, and it is a full system neurological event. It begins with muscle spasms. Small at first, localized near the bite, but within 30 to 60 minutes the spasms spread through the limbs, into the torso, up through the chest and abdomen. The abdominal muscles contract so violently and so rigidly that the stomach becomes hard as a rock. Emergency room doctors have repeatedly confused the presentation with a ruptured appendix or acute peritonitis, because the abdominal pain and rigidity are so severe that they perfectly mimic an internal surgical crisis. And here's the part that makes this spider uniquely unsettling. The bite itself is almost painless. Most people describe it as a small pinprick, barely worth noticing. You might brush it off without a second thought. The real experience doesn't begin until 30 minutes later, when the toxin has had time to spread through the lymphatic system and the first wave of involuntary cramps takes hold. By the time you realize something is genuinely wrong, you may not even remember being bitten. There's a documented case in Nevada, a man using an outdoor wooden restroom in a rural area. The spider was already inside. It got him in one of the most vascular and sensitive areas of the body. The absorption rate through that tissue was so fast that he collapsed within minutes. His heart rhythm became unstable. His abdominal muscles locked so hard the attending medical team initially believed an internal organ had ruptured. It took them a significant amount of time to identify the actual cause. A single puncture wound from an animal smaller than a dime. Now, to put the potency in perspective, the black widow's venom, milligram for milligram, is roughly 15 times more concentrated than a western diamondback rattlesnake's. The only reason it isn't more commonly devastating to humans is volume. The spider is tiny and injects an extremely small dose with each bite. But if you could scale the delivery up, if a black widow could somehow inject the same volume as a single rattlesnake strike, that single dose would theoretically be enough to bring down an entire herd of bison. 1 gram of spider. Enough chemical engineering, in theory, to flatten a group of animals that weigh 1,000 kilograms each, and the web deserves a mention. The individual strands of a black widow's silk are, pound for pound, stronger than high-grade steel cable and more elastic than commercial nylon. It's one of the toughest natural materials ever tested in a laboratory setting. This spider builds its trap out of threads that most engineering teams would have a hard time replicating synthetically. One more thing to correct while we're here. The name Black Widow comes from the popular belief that the female always devours the male after mating. Everyone knows this fact. It's in every nature book, every documentary, every trivia night answer, and it's mostly wrong. In the wild, outside of laboratory conditions, the male frequently escapes after mating with no issues at all. The cannibalism behavior happens primarily when the female is in a state of extreme hunger, or when the pair is confined in a small enclosure, which is exactly what happens in lab experiments. In their natural habitat, most males mate and walk away intact. The real danger of the black widow isn't aggression, it's proximity. These spiders live in garages, in basements, behind water heaters, underneath porch furniture, inside old shoes left by the back door. They don't come looking for people, but they're already there, in the quiet, forgotten corners of the places where you live. And honestly, that might be worse than if they hunted. A spider that weighs less than a paperclip, carrying a compound potent enough to shut down the nervous system of something thousands of times its size, living a few steps from where you park your car every night. California and Nevada share a lot of things. This one, they'd probably prefer they didn't. Bull shark. The black widow hides in places you'd never think to check for danger. Your garage, your basement, behind the things you forgot were there. The next animal does something similar, except it weighs 400 kilograms. And it hides in freshwater rivers, sometimes hundreds of miles from the nearest ocean. Here's a question most people have never thought to ask. How far inland can a shark swim? For most shark species, the answer is simple: 0. Sharks are saltwater animals. Their cells are calibrated for ocean chemistry. Drop one in fresh water, and the osmotic imbalance starts breaking down tissue almost immediately. It's a hard biological wall that evolution built into their physiology millions of years ago. The bull shark, Carcharhinus lucus, walked straight through that wall. This animal has been documented swimming up the Mississippi River as far north as Illinois. Not the coast, not an estuary. The deep interior of the continental United States, over 1,000 kilometers from the nearest saltwater. A shark in water where people fish for catfish and bass, where families wade in the shallows on summer weekends, where the concept of something with rows of serrated teeth is so far from anyone's mind that it might as well be science fiction. Except it isn't. The bull shark can do this because its kidneys are, to put it simply, extraordinary. Most sharks rely on a precise internal salt balance to keep their cells intact. The bull shark evolved a renal system that actively recycles and adjusts the salt concentration in its bloodstream, allowing it to transition between saltwater and fresh water with almost no physiological cost. It is one of the very few shark species on the planet with full osmoregulatory flexibility, and it exploits this advantage relentlessly, traveling up rivers, through brackish estuaries, into lakes and tributaries, hunting in places where no shark has any biological business being. That alone would be enough to earn a place on this list. But it gets worse. Bull sharks carry the highest measured testosterone levels of any vertebrate animal on Earth. Not among sharks. Among all vertebrate life, mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, every animal with a spine, the hormonal baseline of this species is permanently locked at a level that makes it territorial, reactive, and prone to aggressive encounters with little or no provocation. Most sharks won't engage with something unless they're actively hungry or feel directly threatened. The bull shark seems to run on a much shorter fuse. Its bite force clocks in at 1,300 psi. That's lower than the alligator we covered earlier. But relative to the bull shark's compact, muscular body, it's proportionally stronger than a great white's. And it uses a hunting strategy researchers call bump and bite. It rams the front of its skull into the target first, hard enough to stun and disorient, and then follows up with rapid, repeated bites, shaking its head from side to side to rip large sections free. It's not a single calculated strike like the great white uses. It's a blitz. And now, the history. In the summer of 1916, a series of attacks along the New Jersey shore left several swimmers severely injured over a span of just 12 days. The incidents sent panic up and down the East Coast and eventually became the inspiration for both the novel and the film that turned sharks into the most feared creatures in popular culture. You know the movie. Everyone knows the movie. But the detail that makes the 1916 case truly unsettling is this. Not all of those attacks happened in the ocean. Some of them occurred in Matawan Creek, a narrow, shallow tidal waterway, miles inland from the beach. People swimming in what they believed was perfectly safe, calm, fresh water. Teenagers wading in a creek on a hot afternoon. And something found them there. For decades, the great white got the blame. But modern marine biology has largely shifted the consensus. The species that could have navigated that far up a shallow freshwater creek and remained aggressive enough to go after multiple swimmers in knee-deep water was almost certainly a bull shark. The only candidate that fits every piece of evidence. The bull shark doesn't sit in the deep ocean and wait for you to swim out to it. It comes to where you already are. Giant desert centipede. The bull shark goes where no shark is supposed to go. It shows up in rivers, in creeks, in water where nobody is watching for a dorsal fin. The next animal on this list also shows up uninvited, but it doesn't swim. It crawls into your boots, into your tent, across your face at 3 in the morning. There's a specific kind of fear that doesn't come from size, doesn't come from venom potency, doesn't come from any rational calculation of physical danger. It comes from shape, from the way something moves, from a deeply wired, almost prehistoric response in the human brain to seeing something with far too many legs moving far too fast in a place where it absolutely should not be. The giant desert centipede, Scolopendra heros, triggers that response better than almost anything alive. 25 centimeters. That's the length of a standard school ruler. 42 legs, 21 pairs, each one ending in a small curved claw sharp enough to puncture human skin just by walking across it. And it moves like a living cable, fluid, rapid, bending around obstacles and through narrow gaps with a flexibility that seems impossible for something with a rigid exoskeleton. It doesn't scuttle like a beetle or crawl like a worm. It flows, and it flows fast. This animal lives in the dry border region between New Mexico and Texas, and it is not a passive creature. It's a voracious nocturnal hunter that actively pursues prey several times its own body weight. Frogs, lizards, rodents, and in at least one well-documented behavior, bats. It hangs from the ceiling of desert caves, gripping the stone with its rear legs, and snatches bats out of the air mid-flight with its front limbs. A 25-centimeter arthropod dangling upside down in total darkness, catching flying mammals with its bare legs. That's not a horror movie pitch, that's field biology. Its primary weapons are a pair of modified front limbs called forcipules, essentially venom claws. They sit on either side of the head, positioned horizontally, and function like two hypodermic needles mounted side by side. When the centipede strikes, it drives both forcipules into the target simultaneously and injects a cocktail that includes cytotoxins and a compound called scolopendrotoxin, which interferes directly with potassium channels in cardiac tissue. In small prey, frogs, mice, large insects, this causes rapid paralysis and circulatory shutdown within seconds. In humans, it means an intense, throbbing burn at the wound site that can persist for hours, paired with aggressive swelling of the entire affected limb, and in some cases, localized tissue breakdown around the puncture. There are multiple documented reports from campers in southern New Mexico who woke up in the middle of the night with one of these centipedes walking across their faces. The instinctive reaction, swatting, grabbing, throwing, is the worst possible response. The moment the animal feels contact, all 42 clawed legs grip down immediately, anchoring into the skin like dozens of tiny fish hooks. The forcipules deploy on impact. The result is a trail of inflamed puncture marks across the skin, each one swollen and prone to secondary infection from the bacteria the centipede carries on its body from the soil. Some of those campers dealt with infected wound tracks for months afterward. And that brings up one of the most persistent myths about centipedes, the belief that each leg injects its own dose of venom. It's a common claim. It's also completely false. The venom comes exclusively from the forcipules, the two modified front limbs. No other leg on the animal carries any toxin whatsoever. But here's why the myth won't go away. Those 42 leg claws are sharp and they're filthy, coated in soil microbes, decaying organic material, and bacterial film from whatever the centipede has been crawling through. The scratches they leave behind get infected on their own merits. The trail of tiny puncture wounds looks and feels like something toxic happened at every point of contact. The legs don't carry venom. They just introduce enough bacteria to make you wish they did, because at least then there'd be an anti-venom for it. Now, one more thing, and nobody sees this one coming. The female giant desert centipede is a remarkably dedicated mother. After laying her eggs in an underground burrow, she coils her entire body around the clutch, all 25 centimeters of her, and stays there for weeks. She doesn't hunt. She doesn't eat. She wraps herself around those eggs like a living shield, and she uses her mouthparts to gently clean each egg individually, removing fungal spores and microbial growth that would otherwise destroy the clutch in the humid underground chamber. When the young hatch, she remains coiled around them for several more days, guarding them until they're strong enough to survive on their own. A 25-centimeter nightmare made of legs and venom and everything that makes your skin crawl. Spending weeks in the dark, going hungry, carefully cleaning her eggs one at a time. Burmese python. The centipede crawls into places it doesn't belong: boots, tents, sleeping bags. It's 25 centimeters of uninvited nightmare. The next animal did the same thing, on a much larger scale. It crawled into an entire ecosystem where it didn't belong, and it's been swallowing that ecosystem whole ever since. In the 1980s and 1990s, a trend swept through the exotic pet trade in South Florida. People were buying Burmese pythons. beautiful, docile-looking snakes from Southeast Asia, and keeping them in terrariums in their living rooms. The babies were manageable, 2 feet long, calm, easy to handle. A conversation piece, a living decoration. The problem is that Burmese pythons, Python bivitatis, don't stay 2 feet long. They grow fast. Within a few years, that cute terrarium snake becomes a 3-meter, 40-kilogram column of dense muscle that eats rabbits whole and needs a room-sized enclosure. And when owners realized what they'd actually brought into their homes, many of them did the easiest thing available. They dumped the snakes in the Everglades. That decision, repeated by hundreds of pet owners over the course of a decade, created one of the worst ecological disasters in modern American history. Today, Burmese pythons have fully colonized the Florida Everglades. Estimates put the population somewhere in the tens of thousands, possibly over 100,000. They've eliminated roughly 90% of the small mammal population in some surveyed areas. Raccoons, opossums, marsh rabbits, animals that were abundant 20 years ago are now functionally gone from large sections of the park. The python ate them. All of them. A full-grown Burmese python in the Everglades can exceed 5 meters in length and weigh over 90 kilograms. It moves through the dark water and dense vegetation in near total silence. No footsteps, obviously, no rustling. The body flows through the environment like a rope being pulled through grass. Smooth, continuous, and almost impossible to detect until it's already wrapped around something. And the way it takes prey down is worth understanding clearly, because the popular image is wrong. Most people think constrictors crush their prey, that they squeeze until bones break. That's not what happens. The python wraps its coils around the target's torso and begins a process of pressure management. Every time the prey exhales, every time the chest contracts to push air out, the snake tightens, not dramatically, just enough to prevent the next inhale from fully expanding the lungs. Breath by breath, the available space shrinks. Within seconds, the lungs can't inflate at all, and the pressure on the circulatory system cuts blood flow to the brain. The prey loses consciousness before it has time to understand what's happening. It's not a violent crushing, it's a slow, mechanical reduction of space. Quiet, efficient, and almost gentle in its precision. The jaw is its own engineering project. A python's upper and lower jaws are connected not by a rigid joint but by elastic ligaments that allow the mouth to open to an angle of nearly 180 degrees. In practical terms, this means a snake with a head the width of a fist can swallow an animal with a body the width of a basketball. The prey goes in whole. No chewing, no tearing. Just a slow, muscular process of engulfing something several times wider than the snake's own skull. And after a large meal, say a full-grown deer or an adult alligator, the python's internal organs undergo a transformation that borders on science fiction. Its heart can increase in mass by up to 40% within 48 hours. Its liver and kidneys swell dramatically. The entire digestive system upscales itself to handle the metabolic load of breaking down an animal that might weigh as much as the snake itself. Once digestion is complete, the organs shrink back down. It's like a biological surge protector. The body scales up on demand and powers back down when the job is done. Speaking of alligators, yes, pythons eat them. There are documented cases of Burmese pythons swallowing full-grown American alligators in the Everglades. And in at least one famous case, the alligator was apparently too large for the snake to handle. The python's body ruptured from the inside, and the partially digested alligator was found protruding from the split carcass. Both animals were gone. A 5-meter snake and a 2-meter alligator, locked in a fight that neither of them walked away from. And there's a case from Oxford, Florida, that's harder to talk about. A family kept a Burmese python as a pet, a 2.5-meter animal, housed in an aquarium with a faulty lid. During the night, the snake escaped, found its way to a crib, and wrapped itself around the 2-year-old child sleeping inside. The child didn't survive. The snake was simply doing what its biology told it to do, seeking warmth and responding to the presence of a small, warm-bodied animal in an enclosed space. There was no malice. There was no decision. Just a 10-million-year-old set of instincts operating exactly as designed in a place it never should have been. One last fact, and it's the one that stays with me. Researchers studying python migration in the Everglades have captured animals, tagged them, and released them up to 40 kilometers from their original location. The snakes navigated back, in a straight line, through unfamiliar terrain, using, as far as scientists can determine, the Earth's magnetic field as a compass, an internal GPS built into the nervous system of a reptile, accurate enough to guide a 5-meter snake across 40 kilometers of swampland, back to the exact burrow it was taken from. You can remove a python from the Everglades. Getting the Everglades to remove the python is another problem entirely. Mountain lion. The python operates in silence. It moves through dark water without a ripple, wraps around its target without a sound, and finishes the job before anything has a chance to react. There's one predator in the American wilderness that does something very similar on dry land. Except it weighs 80 kilograms, runs at 80 kilometers per hour, and can clear the roof of a 2-story house in a single jump. If you ever come face to face with a mountain lion in the wild, eyes locked, ears forward, body still, there's one thing you should understand immediately about that moment. It means the animal decided to let you see it. The mountain lion, puma concolor, is sometimes called a cougar, sometimes a puma, sometimes a panther. It goes by more common names than almost any other animal in the Americas, but across all of them, one trait stays constant. This is the ghost of the American wilderness. The predator you don't hear, don't see, and don't feel until the weight hits your back. It lives in Utah's canyon country, across the mountain ranges of the West, and in scattered populations across at least 15 U.S. states. It is the largest cat in North America that cannot roar. And what it does instead of roaring is, honestly, worse. But we'll get to that. First, the physics of this animal are difficult to overstate. A mountain lion can leap vertically to a height of 5.5 meters. That's the roofline of a standard 2-story American house. From a standing position, it can launch itself horizontally across 12 meters of open ground, roughly the length of a city bus. And in a straight sprint, it hits 80 kilometers per hour, which is faster than the speed limit on most American highways. It uses that athleticism for one purpose: ambush. The mountain lion doesn't chase prey over long distances like a wolf. It doesn't stand its ground and overpower like a bear. It stalks. It follows. Silently, sometimes for miles, staying downwind, using terrain and vegetation as cover, moving only when the target isn't looking, and when the distance closes to striking range, often from above, from a ledge or a rock shelf or an overhanging branch, it drops. The strike targets one of two places: the base of the skull, where a bite can sever the connection between the spinal cord and the brain, or the throat, where sustained pressure shuts down the airway completely. There's no warning, no growl, no hiss. The first thing the target registers is a sudden massive weight slamming into its back, followed by the sound of something very specific and very final happening to the vertebrae in its neck. In 2024 in Northern California, 2 brothers, 18 and 21, were hiking together when a mountain lion attacked without any warning sign. It came from above and landed on the older brother's face. The younger brother fought the animal, hitting it and trying to pull it off. But the cat shifted its grip, dragged the 18-year-old away by the throat, and by the time help arrived, it was too late. The younger brother didn't make it. The 21-year-old survived with severe injuries. That attack wasn't defensive. The cat wasn't cornered, wasn't protecting cubs. It was a calculated ambush by an animal that had almost certainly been following them for some time before it struck. And then there's the sound. Mountain lions can't roar. Their hyoid bone, the small bone in the throat that, in lions and tigers, is flexible enough to allow deep, resonant roaring, is rigid in pumas. It physically prevents them from producing the classic big cat roar. What they produce instead is something that many people who hear it in the wild initially mistake for a human being in extreme distress. It's a high-pitched, piercing scream, raw, sustained, and startlingly similar to a woman screaming in panic. Females use it primarily during mating season. And hikers who've heard it at night, echoing through a canyon, almost universally describe the same reaction: the immediate, gut-level certainty that someone nearby is in serious trouble. Search and rescue teams in mountain lion territory have responded to calls about screaming women in the woods that turned out to be a solitary puma, somewhere on a ridge, calling for a mate. One more behavior worth knowing. After a mountain lion takes down a large animal, a deer, an elk, sometimes a bighorn sheep, it doesn't consume the entire thing in one sitting. Instead, it drags the remains to a secluded location and buries them under a mound of leaves, dirt, and branches. This is called caching. The cat returns to the same site over several days, feeding incrementally, keeping the food hidden from vultures, coyotes, and other scavengers. A 70-kilogram predator that moves in complete silence, jumps higher than your house, and screams like a person in the middle of the night. Utah doesn't talk about this one much. It probably should. Alligator snapping turtle. The mountain lion is pure speed and precision. It attacks in a fraction of a second from above, and it's over before the target fully understands what happened. The next animal on this list takes the exact opposite approach. It doesn't move at all. It lies on the bottom of a river, mouth wide open, completely still, sometimes for hours, and waits for food to walk directly inside. There's a point where an animal looks so ancient, so armored, so fundamentally wrong for the modern world, that your brain stops processing it as a living thing and starts processing it as a relic. The alligator snapping turtle, Macrochelys teminki, hits that point immediately. Its shell is covered in 3 pronounced ridges lined with sharp, raised scales that look like the dorsal plates of a stegosaurus. Its head is massive, too large to retract into the shell like other turtles, and it's tipped with a hooked beak shaped like a curved blade. The overall impression is that someone dug up a fossil, added teeth, and forgot to tell it that the Cretaceous period ended 66 million years ago. This is the largest freshwater turtle on the planet. Adults can exceed 100 kilograms. They live in the slow-moving rivers and murky lakes of the Deep South, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, buried in silt on the river bottom, often invisible under a layer of algae that grows directly on their shells. And the way they feed is one of the most elegant ambush mechanisms in nature. The alligator snapping turtle sits on the riverbed with its mouth wide open, completely still. It can hold this position for extraordinary stretches of time because it has specialized tissue lining its throat that can absorb dissolved oxygen directly from the water, functioning like a crude set of gills. This means it doesn't need to surface to breathe for up to 3 hours. It just sits there, mouth open, waiting. 100-kilogram rock with a trap door, and inside that open mouth, there's a secret. On its tongue, the turtle has a small pink worm-shaped appendage. It twitches the appendage, rhythmically, convincingly, mimicking the movement of a live worm in the current. Fish see it. They swim closer. They swim right into the mouth, and that mouth closes like a spring-loaded guillotine. The bite force has been measured at roughly 1,000 psi. Applied through a beak designed not for gripping but for shearing. The mechanics are closer to a pair of industrial cable cutters than to a traditional jaw. The beak doesn't clamp and hold, it slices through. Bones, cartilage, flesh, whatever is between the upper and lower beak gets severed with a single instantaneous compression. There are multiple documented medical cases across the southern United States of biologists, fishermen, and wildlife workers who attempted to handle alligator snapping turtles, pulling them from nets, moving them off roads, and lost fingers. Not injured, lost. Severed cleanly at the joint by a bite they didn't see coming. Delivered at a speed that doesn't match anything else a turtle does. The snap is faster than the eye can track. And the old claim that an alligator snapping turtle can bite through a wooden broomstick? That's not a myth. It's been tested and confirmed. The jaw structure, powered by massive closing muscles anchored to the rear of the skull, generates enough focused pressure to shear through hardwood dowels and mammalian long bones with roughly equal ease. The visual is hard to shake. Something that looks like a mossy boulder on the riverbed, perfectly motionless, mouth wide open, a fake worm twitching gently on its tongue. A fish swims in, and the boulder closes. 100 kilograms of armored patience, breathing through its own throat, waiting for the world to come to it. It's been using the same strategy for 30 million years. Hasn't needed to change a thing. Grizzly bear. The snapping turtle waits at the bottom of the river with its mouth open, perfectly still, for hours. 30 million years of patience refined into a single, perfect trap. The next animal on this list has no patience at all. It runs at 56 kilometers per hour, shrugs off gunshot wounds, and has a scientific name that translates, literally, to the horrible bear. There are animals on this list that are dangerous because of their venom, their stealth, or their ability to show up where you don't expect them. And then there's the grizzly bear, Ursus arctos horribilis, which is dangerous because it is a 600-kilogram wall of muscle, bone, and fury that can cover a football field in about 4 seconds and does not stop when it gets hit. That subspecies name, horribilis, wasn't chosen for dramatic effect. It was assigned by a naturalist named George Ord in 1815 after reviewing the first detailed accounts of the animal from the Lewis and Clark expedition. The explorers described an animal so powerful and so resistant to injury that they emptied multiple rifle rounds into one and it kept charging. Ord read those descriptions and decided the only appropriate Latin word was horrible. 200 years later, nothing about that classification has been revised. The grizzly bear is Montana's apex predator. It lives across the northern Rockies, through parts of Wyoming, Idaho, and into Washington. But Montana is the state most synonymous with grizzly country. The state where hikers carry bear spray like a wallet, and where every trailhead has a sign telling you what to do if you see one. The advice is simple: don't run, because you cannot outrun a grizzly. At full charge, this animal hits 56 kilometers per hour. That's faster than Usain Bolt's top recorded speed, and Bolt was running on a flat track in optimal conditions. The grizzly does it uphill through undergrowth on uneven terrain without warming up. The idea that you can escape a grizzly by running downhill, a myth that's been circulating for decades, is exactly that, a myth. They are faster than you in every direction on every surface. Its front claws extend to roughly 10 centimeters, about the length of an adult's index finger, curved slightly, and backed by forearm muscles dense enough to flip a 300-kilogram boulder in a single motion. These claws aren't primarily for hunting. They evolved for digging roots, tearing apart logs, and excavating ground squirrel dens. But in a confrontation, they function as 5 pickaxes per paw, each one capable of opening deep lacerations through clothing, tissue, and muscle in a single swipe. And the animal's tolerance for physical damage is one of the most documented phenomena in North American wildlife biology. A grizzly in a state of adrenaline-fueled aggression can absorb multiple high-caliber impacts and continue attacking with full force. There are accounts from hunters and wildlife officers of bears that sustained injuries that would drop most large mammals, and kept coming. The adrenaline response in this species appears to override pain processing almost entirely during a charge. They don't slow down. They don't hesitate. The only reliable way to stop one mid-charge is a direct, precise hit to the central nervous system, the brain or the upper spine. Anything else, and you have a wounded grizzly that is now significantly more motivated than before. This brings us to the most well-known grizzly story in modern American history. Timothy Treadwell was a wildlife enthusiast who spent 13 consecutive summers living among grizzly bears in Katmai National Park, Alaska. He filmed them, named them, and believed he had developed a mutual understanding with them, that the bears recognized him and accepted his presence. For over a decade, he lived closer to grizzlies than almost any human being in history. He became famous for it. He was called the Grizzly Man. In October 2003, near the end of his 13th season, Treadwell and his girlfriend Amy Huguenard were found at their campsite. A large, older male grizzly, one that Treadwell didn't recognize, likely a bear from outside his usual territory, weakened by age and desperately putting on weight before hibernation, had come into the camp. An audio recording of the encounter exists. The camera was running, but the lens cap was on. Only sound was captured. The recording has never been released publicly, and the people who have heard it have universally refused to describe it in detail. Neither Treadwell nor Huguenard made it out of that camp. The incident didn't prove that grizzly bears are mindless aggressors. It proved something more nuanced and arguably more frightening, that even after 13 years of proximity, a grizzly bear's behavior toward a human being ultimately depends on that animal's immediate biological needs. When the bear was old, hungry, and desperate, none of the familiarity mattered. Now the grizzly also has something to settle with its relatives on this list. We covered the Kodiak bear earlier. the island titan with the massive skull and the surprisingly calm disposition. The grizzly is the mainland version of that same species, and the dynamic between them and other predators is constant and violent. Grizzlies regularly dominate wolf packs, walking directly into a fresh pack takedown and simply claiming the food. A pack of 8 wolves will abandon a carcass rather than contest a single adult grizzly. And grizzlies don't just compete with black bears, they actively hunt and consume them. A grizzly will track, corner, and overpower a black bear in its own territory, treating it not as a rival, but as prey. There's also the myth about trees. The conventional wisdom is that you can escape a grizzly by climbing a tree, because grizzlies are too heavy to follow. This is partially true for thin trees. An adult grizzly's weight makes it difficult to scale narrow trunks, but put a robust tree with sturdy branches in front of a motivated grizzly, and it will use the raw strength of its forelimbs to pull itself up to heights that would surprise anyone who assumed they were safe 10 feet off the ground. Wildlife footage from Yellowstone and Glacier has confirmed this multiple times. Climbing a tree buys you time. It does not guarantee safety, and the sound. Researchers who have been close to a charging grizzly describe the roar as something that affects the body before the mind processes it. At close range, inside 10 meters, the acoustic pressure of a full-volume grizzly vocalization can trigger a freeze response in prey animals and humans alike. It's not just loud, it's a physical event. The air moves, your chest vibrates, and your legs, for a brief but very real moment, stop receiving the signal to run. Now, after all of that, let me tell you what grizzly bears spend most of their pre-hibernation calories on. Moths. Specifically, army cutworm moths. Small, unremarkable insects that migrate to high-altitude boulder fields in the Rocky Mountains every summer. Grizzlies climb to these elevations, sometimes above 3,000 meters, and spend days flipping rocks, one by one, licking up the moths hiding underneath. A single bear can consume 40,000 moths in a day. Each moth contains about half a calorie of fat. It adds up, and for a bear trying to pack on the 200 extra kilograms it needs before winter, those tiny moths are one of the most efficient calorie sources available. The most formidable land predator in the lower 48 states spends its final waking weeks before hibernation carefully turning over rocks on a mountaintop, eating moths one lick at a time. Some animals are complicated like that. Gila monster. The grizzly bear is brute force in its purest form, speed, mass, and raw power directed at whatever it decides to hit. The next animal is the opposite of all that. It's slow, it's squat, it looks like a beaded handbag with legs, and it carries one of the most agonizing venoms in the Western Hemisphere, delivered not through a quick strike, but through a prolonged grinding bite that can last a quarter of an hour. The Gila monster, Heloderma suspectum, is one of only 2 venomous lizards native to North America, and it lives in exactly the kind of place you'd expect something called a monster to live, the Sonoran Desert of Arizona, where the ground temperature can exceed 60 degrees Celsius, and the only things that thrive are the things that learn to hide. And hiding is what the Gila monster does best. It spends roughly 90% of its life underground, buried in burrows, motionless in the dark. It emerges for a few hours at a time, primarily during the mild temperatures of spring, to hunt eggs, nestlings, and small rodents, and then it disappears again, for weeks, sometimes months. The vast majority of people who live in Arizona their entire lives will never see one in the wild. But when you do find one, or worse, when one finds you, the first thing you notice is the skin. It looks like armor made of beads. Hundreds of small, rounded, bony protrusions called osteoderms cover the entire body in a mosaic pattern of black and pink, like tiles set into living leather. Those osteoderms aren't decorative. They're structural, a biological chainmail that protects the animal from the bites of coyotes, raptors, and king snakes. Very few predators in the desert can get through that skin. The Gila monster wears its defense on the outside and doesn't have to move fast because almost nothing in its environment can hurt it. The real story, though, is in the mouth. Unlike snakes, which inject venom through hollow fangs connected to pressurized glands, the Gila monster has no injection system at all. Its venom, produced in glands along the lower jaw, seeps slowly into the wound through grooved teeth. The teeth aren't needles, they're channels. And the only way the venom gets deep enough to do real damage is if the lizard holds on and chews. which is exactly what it does. When a Gila monster bites, it clamps its jaws shut with a force that has been compared to a bench vise, and it does not let go. It locks on and begins grinding its teeth back and forth in a slow, deliberate chewing motion, working the grooved lower teeth deeper into the tissue, opening the wound wider, and allowing more venom to flow into the laceration with each movement. This process can continue for 15 minutes or more. The animal has no incentive to release. It's in no hurry. And every second it holds on, more toxin enters the wound. Trying to pry a Gila monster's jaws open during a bite is, by most accounts, extraordinarily difficult. People have used pliers, sticks, and even flames, often with limited success. The jaw muscles are built for sustained clamping pressure, not quick striking, which is the opposite of most venomous animals, where the bite is fast and the release is immediate. The Gila monster's strategy is time. It invests time into every bite, and the longer it holds, the worse the outcome. The venom itself is neurotoxic, with high concentrations of serotonin, phospholipase A2, and a suite of compounds that attack the cardiovascular system. The immediate sensation is an intense, radiating burn, described by researchers and bite victims as the feeling of boiling water being pumped through the veins of the affected limb. Swelling follows quickly, blood pressure drops. In severe cases, the victim experiences respiratory difficulty, nausea, and waves of full-body cramping that can persist for hours after the lizard has been removed. In February 2024, a man in Colorado who was keeping 2 Gila monsters illegally in his home was bitten on the arm by one of them. The animal clamped on and held for several minutes before it could be removed. The man began vomiting, lost consciousness, and was rushed to a hospital. He didn't recover. The venom, combined with the depth and duration of the bite, had caused cascading complications that his body couldn't overcome. It's worth pausing on that. An animal that weighs less than a kilogram, that moves at the speed of a slow walk, that looks like a beaded purse with a bad attitude, and it took down a grown adult because it simply refused to let go. Now, here's the turn that nobody sees coming, and it might be the most important fact on this entire list. In the 1990s, researchers studying the Gila monster's venom isolated a compound called exendin-4, a peptide found in the animal's saliva that mimics a human hormone called GLP-1, which regulates blood sugar and insulin production. That discovery became the direct scientific foundation for the development of a class of drugs that now includes semaglutide, sold commercially as Ozempic and Wegovy. If you know anyone who takes those medications, for diabetes, for weight management, for metabolic health, the active principle traces back to the mouth of this lizard. The same mouth that chews venom into open wounds for 15 minutes is also the source of one of the most widely prescribed pharmaceutical breakthroughs of the 21st century. The most feared lizard in the American desert accidentally became the basis for a drug that millions of people depend on every day. It spends 90% of its life buried in a hole. It moves slower than most people walk. And its spit changed modern medicine. Arizona's nightmare is also Arizona's gift. That's the Gila monster. Great white shark. The Gila monster holds on for 15 minutes, grinding venom into an open wound with the patience of something that has nowhere else to be. Slow, deliberate, chemical. The next animal operates at the opposite end of that spectrum. It moves at 40 kilometers per hour underwater, carries 300 teeth arranged in rows like a conveyor belt of serrated blades, and launches itself and its prey completely out of the ocean on the initial strike. Earlier in this list, we talked about the bull shark, the one that breaks the rules by swimming up freshwater rivers into places where no shark belongs. I mentioned that there's something bigger waiting in deeper, colder water. This is that something. The great white shark, Carcharodon carcharias, is possibly the most feared animal in human culture. It's the reason an entire generation of people felt uneasy about going past waist-deep water. It's the silhouette on the poster, the shadow under the surfboard, the fin cutting through a flat, calm surface. No animal in history has been more effectively mythologized as a pure engine of destruction, and the real animal is, in many ways, more impressive than the myth. It lives along the coast of California, from the cold, murky waters off San Francisco south, through Monterey Bay, and down past the Channel Islands. These waters are home to enormous colonies of sea lions and elephant seals, which are the great white's primary prey. And the way it hunts them reveals something about this animal that most nature footage doesn't fully capture. The great white is not a chase predator. It's an ambush specialist. The attack comes from below, deep below. The shark positions itself at depth, sometimes 30 or 40 meters down, in water so dark that it's functionally invisible from the surface. It identifies its target's silhouette against the light above, and then it accelerates. Straight up, full speed. The impact is so violent that both the shark and the prey launch completely out of the water. This is called a breach. A 2-ton animal, fully airborne, jaws open, with something the size of a large dog clamped between them. The strike itself generates an estimated 4,000 pounds per square inch of bite force, delivered through roughly 300 teeth, each one serrated like a steak knife and arranged in rotating rows so that when a front tooth breaks, the one behind it slides forward to replace it. It's a self-repairing saw blade mounted on a torpedo, but the great white doesn't finish its prey in one pass. Not usually, and the reason is strategic. Sea lions and elephant seals are powerful animals. They have claws, they're fast, and in close combat, they can injure a shark's eyes, one of the few vulnerable points on the animal's body. So the great white has evolved a calculated approach. Deliver one massive, devastating initial bite, remove a large section of tissue, and then back off, disengage entirely, swim away, and wait. The prey, now severely wounded and losing fluid rapidly in cold water, weakens, it slows, it stops being able to fight or flee, and when the shark senses, through pressure receptors along its lateral line and through its ability to detect trace amounts of biological fluid in the water at extraordinary distances, that the target has weakened enough, it returns to feed without risk. One bite, retreat, wait, return. It's not frenzy, it's patience measured in blood concentration per liter of seawater. In 2022, a swimmer named Felix Louis Nguyen was in the water off Pacific Grove, California, when a great white hit him across the midsection and both legs in a single pass. He was in open water, alone, badly wounded and losing strength fast. What saved him was a group of nearby surfers who paddled over immediately, pulled him onto a board, and used the rubber leashes from their surfboards as improvised tourniquets to slow the fluid loss until paramedics arrived. Nguyen survived, but only because a group of strangers had the instinct to do something that most people wouldn't think of in a moment of that intensity. Now, the myth, the one that's been embedded in the culture since 1975. The great white shark is not a man-eater. It doesn't seek out humans. It doesn't prefer them. In fact, by every available metric, humans are a terrible meal for this animal. We're too lean, too bony, not enough fat. A great white's metabolism runs on the dense, calorie-rich blubber of marine mammals. Seals, sea lions, elephant seals, animals that can be 60% body fat by mass. A human being, by comparison, is a skeleton wrapped in a thin layer of protein. Not worth the effort. Almost every documented great white attack on a human is what researchers call an investigative bite, a test. The shark doesn't have hands. It can't poke something to find out what it is. The only tool it has for investigating an unknown object is its mouth. And from below, looking up at the silhouette of a surfer lying flat on a board, arms out, legs trailing, the shape is remarkably similar to a seal. The shark bites, realizes the caloric content isn't what it expected, and leaves. Most human encounters with great whites end with the shark swimming away, completely disinterested. That doesn't make the bite survivable by default. A test bite from an animal with 4,000 psi of jaw pressure and 300 serrated teeth still removes a significant amount of tissue. But the intent matters for understanding the animal. It's not hunting you. It made a mistake, and it corrected it. The great white does have enemies, though. Exactly one: orcas. In recent years, marine biologists tracking great whites along the South African and California coasts have documented a behavior that no one predicted. When orcas move into an area, the great whites leave. Immediately, tagged sharks that had been resident in a territory for months will vacate within hours of an orca pod arriving and will not return for the rest of the season. And the reason appears to be surgical. Orcas have been observed targeting great whites with a specific purpose. They want the liver. The shark's liver is enormous. It can make up to a quarter of the animal's total body weight, and it's packed with a fatty compound called squalene, making it one of the most energy-dense organs in the ocean. Orcas have been found to extract the liver with remarkable precision, leaving the rest of the carcass largely intact. They don't want the shark. They want one specific organ, and they're skilled enough to get it. The perfect predator of the ocean has a predator of its own, and it's smarter. One last thing. The great white shark can never stop moving. It breathes through a process called obligate ram ventilation. Water must continuously flow over its gills for oxygen exchange to occur. If the shark stops swimming forward, the water stops flowing, the gills stop working, and the animal begins to suffocate. In its own ocean, surrounded by all the oxygen it could ever need, dissolved in billions of gallons of water, and unable to access any of it without forward motion. The ocean's most iconic predator has exactly two weaknesses: killer whales and standing still. American bison, 3 times. That's how many more injuries the next animal causes in Yellowstone National Park every year than bears and wolves combined. It has no venom, no fangs, no claws, no predatory instinct of any kind. It eats grass. The American bison, bison, is the largest land mammal in North America. A full-grown bull can weigh over 1,000 kilograms. It stands nearly 2 meters tall at the shoulder, and when it decides to move, it covers ground at 55 kilometers per hour. Faster than any human alive, faster than most horses, and fast enough that by the time your brain fully processes the fact that a 1-ton animal is charging at you, the distance between you and it has already been cut in half. Every year in Yellowstone National Park, bison injure more visitors than every other animal in the park combined. More than grizzlies, more than wolves, more than elk. And the reason is always the same. People see a large, grass-eating animal standing calmly in a field, and their brain categorizes it as livestock, as something slow, something safe, something they can walk up to for a photograph. That miscalculation has put people in hospitals with broken ribs, punctured organs, and spinal fractures. And it keeps happening every single year, because the bison's appearance is the greatest lie in American wildlife. In 2022, a woman visiting Yellowstone approached a bull bison to take a photo from less than 3 meters away. The animal charged with almost no warning, caught her with its horns, and launched her roughly 3 meters into the air. She landed hard and was airlifted to a hospital with severe abdominal injuries. She survived. But the margin between survival and the alternative at that range and that speed is measured in centimeters of horn placement. The physics of a bison charge are worth sitting with for a moment. Being struck by an adult bull at full speed is the mechanical equivalent of being hit by a compact car traveling at 50 kilometers per hour, except the car has 2 curved iron spikes welded to the front bumper. The horns are dense bone, slightly curved and positioned at a height that corresponds almost exactly to the human abdomen and chest. The bison doesn't just push you, it hooks under you, lifts and tosses. Victims, animal and human, are frequently launched several meters into the air before hitting the ground, at which point the hooves become the primary concern. And the power doesn't come just from the legs. The most distinctive feature of the bison, that massive towering hump above the shoulders, is not fat. This is one of the most common misconceptions about the animal. It's not a camel-style energy reserve. The hump is pure skeletal muscle, anchored to a set of elongated thoracic vertebrae that extend upward like structural pillars. That muscle mass exists for one specific purpose: to power the downward and forward motion of the animal's enormous head. In winter, when the northern Rockies are buried under feet of snow, the bison uses its head as a plow. It swings that massive skull side to side in sweeping arcs, clearing snow down to the grass beneath, feeding through conditions that would starve almost any other herbivore. The hump provides the torque. The skull provides the blade. It's a biological snowplow that can operate for hours in sub-zero temperatures without stopping. And that same head, powered by that same hump, is what makes it so dangerous to anything standing in front of it. During the rutting season, late summer, when bulls compete for mating access, males charge each other head-on at full gallop. 2 animals, each weighing close to 1,000 kilograms, sprinting toward each other and colliding skull to skull. The impact has been compared by field biologists to a minor car accident. The sound of the collision carries across open valleys. The ground shakes on impact, and they do it repeatedly, sometimes dozens of times in a single contest, until one of them backs down. Their skulls are built for this. Layers of dense bone, backed by the muscle of the hump, absorb and distribute the shock. It's a biological crash helmet evolved specifically for head-on collisions at highway speed. Now, here's something every ranger in Yellowstone will tell you if you ask. Watch the tail. A bison's emotional state is broadcast in real time by the position of its tail. When the tail is hanging loose and relaxed, swinging slightly with the animal's gait, the bison is calm, unbothered. You're fine, from a distance. When the tail goes straight up, stiff, vertical, pointing at the sky like a flagpole, the animal has made a decision, and that decision involves you. If the tail is hanging loose, you're fine. If it's straight up, you have about 3 seconds.